It is talkSPORT Extra Time, and here's the thing. Of course, the cloud of uncertainty is hanging over the world of football, and we're being advised, or getting the sense that we're going to be advised, we should avoid large gatherings and maybe stay indoors more, which is perfect for our next guest. He's a man about town, of course, but he's also got 1, 2, 3 tip-top film recommendations for you for the weekend that do not involve you going out to the cinema, because he is the coronavirus-busting Van Connor, top film critic. Good morning, Van.
Good morning to you, Mr. Ross.
Now, before we get into our 3 films each for the weekend, let me ask you more generally about the movie business. We know it's had an impact with, for example, No Time to Die has been postponed, I think, till November. Peter Rabbit 2, I looked randomly, has been postponed. What other impacts has it had? What are the kind of reverberations of coronavirus into the world of movies?
Well, we've had loads just today. In fact, in the last, 6 to 8 hours. The biggie, of course, has been F9, the new Fast and Furious movie, which has been pushed back by an entire year.
Wow.
It's now going to open in April next year. On top of that, we've got the horror movie Antlers. We've got the new Kumail Nanjiani comedy, The Lovebirds. We've got the New Mutants, the X-Men spin-off, which would have been the last of the Fox X-Men movies. That's been delayed as well. A Quiet Place Part 2 that was going to open next week. That's been delayed. And most significantly, Disney's live-action adaptation of Mulan has been delayed as well, which doesn't bode well for Black Widow at this stage.
I've seen posters all over London for Mulan as I've been driving out, so they've decided not to unleash it upon the cinemas then.
No, and tonight was the European premiere as well. Wow. So I'll tell you, I'm fearing for Black Widow right now, because that's May 1st.
Okay, let's crack on then with your first recommendation, and it's something that might make us think of the summer, of red swimsuits, and of maybe a bit of surf action. It's Baywatch.
Well, it makes me think of slow-mo and bouncing boobs, but it's the Dwayne Johnson. Whom did you favour most as a young shaver? Was it Pamela Anderson or Erica Eleniak? I was torn between Erica Eleniak and Yasmin Bleeth.
Okay,
if you want the truth, that was my poison.
Because one of the many reasons for watching Under Siege, the Steven Seagal film, is because Erica Eleniak emerges topless from a barrel at one point, does she not? Be still my beating
from inside a birthday cake. Inside a birthday cake,
right.
I believe.
So let's have your thoughts on Baywatch before we hear the clip then.
So Baywatch, 2017 feature film adaptation. It goes down the Starsky and Hutch route. When they made the movie Starsky and Hutch, they made that into a comedy. They did the same thing with Baywatch. I would argue it's the most successful case with Baywatch. You've got Dwayne Johnson's playing the Hasselhoff role. You've got Zac Efron as the arrogant, plucky young recruit. He's a disgraced ex-Olympic swimmer who sort of joins Baywatch as a community service thing. And it's the begrudging relationship between this would-be mentor and mentee as they take on the case of a corrupt local businesswoman and her drug smuggling ring. I've got a clip for you of Zac Efron, let's just say, not making the greatest impression with female co-workers.
Here we go.
Wait, Summer, do you have time to study later?
Yeah. Do you just look at my boobs?
I was not my intention. I didn't stare directly at them.
You're looking at them right now.
Now I did. Because you were talking about them.
Testing. Oh, failed. Oh, my God. Well, we're going to be in swimsuits a lot, so...
Yeah.
If it's going to be a problem for you...
It's not a problem for me at all.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. You just looked at them again.
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't. Well, when you point them out like that, it's a compliment if you think about it, sorry.
I mean, it is a funny enough film, this. It's kind of park your brain at the door and enjoy it, which we might need in these challenging times.
I think so. I had a really good time with Baywatch. When it came out, I remember it was a film that, just because of the inherent nature of the Baywatch brand being what it is, I don't think anyone had really high expectations. For me, when I heard that it was going to be a comedy, they were primarily going in with it as a comedy, that just opened up all sorts of potential in my mind. But the idea that Dwayne Johnson was doing it, that sort of sold it to me right off the bat, because there is a quality barrier that comes with having Dwayne Johnson involved.
Brilliant stuff. And when can we see that one? That's tonight, isn't it?
So that is tonight on Film 4 at 9 p.m.
Okay, now I've got a recommendation also on Film 4. It's right after that. It's 11:15. It's an award-winning movie from 2006. Came with kind of great critical thumbs up all the way down the line. Set in 1983, directed by Brummy Thoroughbred, great film director and writer Shane Meadows. And it's called This Is England. For those who've not seen it, folks, it's basically a young guy, young lad, very impressionable, kind of 12, 13 years old. He's lost his dad in the Falklands War. His mum is struggling. He's getting picked on at school, and suddenly he finds a new kind of extended family and then a new father figure, because he joins a kind of third-generation skinhead mob, a skinhead crew. Stephen Graham's character, Combo, then comes into his life, and things take a terrifying and violent turn. It's a great film, and we've got the trailer.
What's wrong with your trousers? Look at the size of them.
Hey.
Talking to me? Woodstock's that way, pal.
Don't like it here, Mum. I liked it better when we were with Dad.
Dad's gone now.
I'm Woody, mate. Nice to meet you. That there's Milky, my main man. Pukey eating this fat idiot's gadget.
I'll just freaking do it.
Transformation.
I think you're lovely. Will you be my girlfriend? It's been the best day of my life.
Oh.
I just wanted to thank you because you said he's been being bullied at school and you'd helped him out, but the hair is not good.
I mean, it is a very clever and moving film. It's not two-dimensional either. And Stephen Graham, I mean, Thomas Turgoose plays the lad, Sean, and Stephen Graham is fantastic in this because, again, he's not your caricature. He's not just a racist skinhead. He's got his own problems and issues and demons. This is a great film, isn't it, Van?
It is. It's very nuanced. It's one of those films that, to be honest with you, the subject matter would ordinarily make me think, oh, okay, it's the standard thing. We've seen this done a million times. What could they possibly bring that's new to the table? But they do bring a level of characterization and almost charm to it that sets it apart for me.
And again, it's that whole thing about, you know, false steps as a kid and a false father figure, but also it's got first love in there. So it's a challenging film, folks, but it's right after Baywatch. It's an unusual double bill, though. Baywatch, Film 4, 9 o'clock, 11:15 on Film 4. This is England, which did spawn a TV show. And for tomorrow, you've got an interesting film, which I suspect is about some cookery competition. It's called Sausage Party. Is that right?
I'm hoping you're being genuinely sincere and don't know what this is about, Paul, because I'm very much looking forward to explaining this one to you, if that's the case.
Please tell us all about your sausage party.
Right, so my sausage party that we're going to be discussing is an animated feature film, a computer-animated feature film, written by and starring Seth Rogen.
So it's going to be a little bit near the knuckle, one suspects.
It's very much going to be near the knuckles. So this is set within the confines of a supermarket,
right,
in which we follow the adventures of a hot dog who escapes his pack of hot dogs and goes on an adventure across the supermarket with a bunch of other food products. They're all anthropomorphized. They have eyes and mouths and arms and legs. And they set off on a quest to discover the truth about the promised land, the great white light that lives beyond the supermarket doors, that they are led to believe is like the next level of existence. But they quickly discover is actually going to see them all cut up, cooked, and eaten. Oh. And they have to break this news to all of the other food, effectively.
Okay, so first of all, before we hear your clip, when can we see this? What channel is it on? What time?
So, brilliantly enough, this is on Dave. This is on Saturday night at 10 p.m. on Dave. I've got a clip for you of Seth Rogen having been told, you know, the reality of his situation by a bottle of tequila firewater voiced by Bill Hader and played as a Native American chieftain, and a bunch of other assorted, I think you've got like a Twinkie is involved, I believe. Just a bunch of really whacked out, far out of their gourd characters.
Sausage Party sounds like a banger. Let's have a listen.
What you're saying is true. I gotta tell everyone.
Very noble little sausage, but also very pointless. No one will believe you.
I have to try. Everyone will die otherwise.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Me, right?
Wait, do you guys have any proof of this?
Go to the dark aisle, beyond the ice.
Why? What's in that aisle?
Oh, you'll see. But I warn you, once you see that, it'll you up. Bye. Good luck. Have fun.
Ready, steady, run, it sounds like. Now, this did have a bit of a critical pasting, I think, when it came out, didn't it?
It really did. It was one of those films that, like all R-rated animated films, it doesn't go down well with your average middle-aged critic, but it goes down pretty well with me when I'm 33 years old and just out for a good time in an afternoon.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's Sausage Party, and then I've got Channel 4, 9 o'clock. I know you rate this film. Who doesn't? It's 26 years old now, this film. Written by James Cameron, based on a French film called La Totale. It stars, of course, Charlton Heston, Jamie Lee Curtis, Tia Carrera, Bill Paxton, a favourite of James Cameron, Art Malik, but above all, Big Arnie Schwarzenegger. It's True Lies, and this is a belter, isn't it, Van?
This is one hell of a film.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock, it's Channel 4. Basically, Arnie's character is, well, his wife, Jamie Lee Curtis, who plays Dowdy at first in this, thinks he's some boring market salesperson type. In fact, he is one of the world's most lethal secret agents on the side of good, but of course it's inevitable. Those two lives have got to come together because he's telling true lies, as he said. He's lying to her, but for all the best reasons. It soon becomes unravelled. Here's the trailer.
For 15 years, Harry Tasker's been leading a double life.
Mr. President, one of our best men is inside.
Transmitting now.
Right on time.
I don't believe I've met you before.
Rehnquist. Harry Rehnquist.
Listen to the following code word. Helen. Helen.
Now, they're about to collide.
What directs the strategy?
I'm gonna walk right out of the front gate.
May I see your invitation, please?
Sure. Here's my invitation.
Yeah, that worked good. Right out the front gate.
You mean back a second?
Mr. Tasker's office.
Hi, it's Helen. Is he in?
How is your sales meeting, Mrs. Tasker?
It's not like he's saving the world or anything.
I see, this is the problem with terrorists. They're really inconsiderate when it comes to people's schedules.
It's 9 o'clock, it's tomorrow night, it's Channel 4. I think it cost around $100 million, but it made $400 million. I mean, James Cameron has practically kind of generated the gross domestic products of a small country on his own, hasn't he?
Well, he really has. When you look at the films he's made, I mean, just for Titanic alone. But you say that, interestingly enough, this was the very first film ever to have a production budget of more than $100 million.
Oh, right, okay.
It's like normal now, but then unheard of. And who are you going to give that to except James Cameron? Interesting thing as well. I mean, I'm sure you love the casting of Charlton Heston as the eye patch wearing director of the Omega Directive. The two things that I always take away from this are first of all that the tech that they have, you know, the techie guy who sits in the van for them, that is George Clooney's production partner, Grant Heslov. That is now an Oscar-winning producer.
Isn't he also a guy? Doesn't he turn up in one of the Jurassic Park movies?
I'm not sure,
I think he's got a brief part in that as well, but everything about this film works, folks. I'm sure you've seen it, but come on. Set record, 9 o'clock tomorrow night, Channel 4. An absolute belter this one is. And I interviewed Art Malik about another film we've made, which didn't get a big release, called Clockwork Mice. And I was talking about True Lies, and he said it was one of those amazing things. He'd been in kind of TV shows, he'd made some money, but acting is sporadic. And he said he was really worried, him and his wife had a lovely house in Brighton, but he was really worried he couldn't meet his mortgage payments, things were looking really tough. Suddenly his agent called and said, I've had this very strange request for you to meet up with somebody called James Cameron. They're thinking of you as a bad guy for some James Bond type film. And Mark Malik said, I nearly said, I don't think I'm interested in that. How glad he is now that he said yes to it, because he's great at it, isn't he? And it kind of reinvented him.
Well, he is, and like you say, because I think, was he from Casualty at one point? I think my mum always
he'd been through Casualty, and he'd been in The Jewel in the Crown, hadn't he? That was his breakthrough on Channel 4, the adaptation of that lovely novel, but the Raj Quartet.
I'm sure you, of all people, must appreciate that gag at the beginning with Schwarzenegger climbing out of the water in a wetsuit, having the Goldfinger tuxedo underneath, nicely pressed. Underneath. Somehow in Arnie's size as well. Yeah,
even bigger than Sean Connery's tuxedo. And let's go now to your recommendation for Sunday. This sounds to me like kind of comfort watching you might sit around with the whole family for. You've gone for, I don't know which version it is, Pride and Prejudice, Van Connor.
I've gone for the 2006 Joe Wright adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, which stars Keira Knightley and Matthew Macfadyen as Jane Bennet and Mr. Darcy, respectively.
But no Arnold Schwarzenegger then?
No Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No big Arnold.
I'm still waiting for Arnold Schwarzenegger's adaptation of Hamlet from Last Action Hero, if I'm honest.
If Mel Gibson could do it, I suppose Arnie could do Hamlet, or King Lear, couldn't he? Okay, so for those who don't know the story, it is about Pride and Prejudice, and it's Jane Austen, of course. So tell us a bit about the story. Just set it up for us, if you would.
The story is about the Bennet sisters in, the classic Austenian period setting. It is, it's about young women effectively trying to secure husbands and the trials and tribulations and pitfalls that before them. You've got Jane, who really is kind of the young upstart of the group. I think she's the eldest of the sisters, but she's the more cynical of them. She encounters Mr. Darcy, played here by Matthew Macfadyen, who, under ideal circumstances, under everyday optimal circumstances, would be her perfect match. But she's naturally hostile and gives him something of a run for his money.
She's prejudiced against him because she thinks he's proud.
Yeah, imagine that. It's almost like it's a clever title.
Okay.
I've got a clip for you of Donald Sutherland as the patriarch of the Bennett household dealing with his very excitable daughters.
Oh, Mr. Bennett, how can you tease me so? Have you no compassion for my poor nerves?
Oh, you mistake me, my dear. I have the highest respect for them. They've been my constant companions these 20 years.
Papa, is he amiable?
Who? Is he handsome?
Who?
He's sure to be handsome.
With 5,000 a year, it would not matter if he had warts and a leer.
Who's got warts?
I will give my hearty consent to his marrying whichever of the girls he chooses.
So will he come to the ball tomorrow, Papa?
I believe so.
Donald Sutherland, always worth watching. It's Pride and Prejudice. When can we catch this if one is so minded, Van? I must confess I might be swerving this one. When can we see it on Sunday?
Well, it's a truth universally acknowledged that you can find this as it belongs on a Sunday afternoon on Channel 5 at 3:45.
Before that, though, is my Western of the weekend. It's Sunday. It's one of the Cavalry trilogy films from John Ford. He made Fort Apache. He made Rio Grande. He made the brilliant She Wore a Yellow Ribbon in 1949. It got an Academy Award for Best Cinematography. It stars, of course, Big John Wayne, Ben Johnson, John Agar, and Victor McLagan, who is brilliant in this. Basically, it's about the last couple of weeks of a cavalry officer's career out there in the West. He's trying to avert an Apache war, and he's also trying to deal with a kind of love triangle because a young girl turns up on the fort. Brilliant film, and here, my friends, is a clip from the trailer.
Drama moves here. Raw, violent, real. And into this danger-infested land comes one woman, young, provocative. Because of her, men fight heroically. Because of her, men die.
Button up that shirt, mister.
Please.
You can sneer all you want to, but you keep your paws off my girl. We must stop this war, pony that walks.
Too late, Nathan. Too late.
See, what is great about this film, I think, is, as with even his very last film, Cheyenne Autumn, is he takes the Native Americans very seriously, and they're treated in a very dignified manner in this. There's not an element of caricature in this, even though apparently in real life John Ford was a bit of a so-and-so.
Well, this is the thing. John Ford took the film incredibly seriously and was really respectful of it, to the extent that, as far as I remember on this one, I don't think he wanted John Wayne for the role. I think he thought that John Wayne was too young at the time.
Oh, yeah, because they grey him up. He does it very well, I think, John Wayne. But, yeah, you can tell he's wearing that kind of Hollywood grey hair at the temples look.
Oh yeah, I think the understanding at the time was that he was too young and too much of a sort of, I don't want to say popcorn actor, because whatever the equivalent at the time of a popcorn actor would be, that he wasn't really a character performer. There's a story, I believe, that he saw him in, what was the film now? I think it might have been Red River.
Yeah.
That he'd seen him in Red River.
Well, that great Howard Hawks with Montgomery Clift, that he holds his own with Monty Clift, doesn't he?
He does, but I think it's that film that changed John Ford's mind and said, okay, this guy can act, I'll take him. And the rest is history, obviously.
Brilliant stuff. So that's 12:15 Sunday afternoon on Sony Action. It's also Sony Action Plus 1 an hour later. Some great film recommendations, Van. You have a great weekend. Stay safe. You're not self-isolating yet, then?
I'm British. I'm used to self-isolating.
Thank you.
I like to stay in my flat and not talk to anyone.
Thank you very much indeed. That's what God invented television and the movies for, and football, of course. More from me, Paul Ross on talkSPORT Extra Time. Thank you very much indeed, Van Connor. Oh, Van, remind us where we can hear you, and I think it's John Hearn this week, isn't it, on your podcast?
It is. Bex has taken the week off, so Johnny Hearn is filling in, and we are on the off-screen show. You'll be able to find us this morning from 6 a.m. on podcast platforms with your 7-day ultimate movie guide.
And when I called it a podcast, I didn't mean it. That was a slip of the tongue. It's a podcast, of course. It's Van Connor and John Hearn, and he's back with us next Friday.